Welcome everybody. My name is Lynn Utesch. I'm from Kewaunee County. I am a farmer. My family and I, we raise 100% grass-fed beef on 150 acres. I'm going to tell you my truth. John Ikerd uses this, and I'm going to tell you my truth. And unfortunately, what's my truth may become your reality if you're not careful. Where I live is very polluted. Sometimes driving through you can't see it, but we know it. So you will see today my truth and Kewaunee County's truth. In Kewaunee County, we have some very acute problems with our water. One of the things that I started along with several other people in our county is a citizen organization called Kewaunee Cares. Kewaunee Cares was formed to help to identify and to fix some of the environmental issues that were taking place in our county. We were just citizens. We used to get together and have coffee and say, geez, look at this, what's going on here. Somebody needs to do something about this. And we'd get together again and we'd say, geez, look at this. Somebody's got to do something about this. And one day my wife read a quote and it said, somebody needs to do something about this. You're somebody. So we created Kewaunee Cares. 3 years ago, we started doing environmental monitoring in our county, basically with our water, because that's what we saw was the biggest visible issue that we had. Our waterways have massive contamination. We've done 2.5 years of water testing in the Kewaunee River, the Anapee River, and the East Twin River. All three of our rivers show extremely high levels of nitrates. 10 parts per million is the EPA standard for drinking water. We're finding in our surface waters that we have exceedance of the 10 parts per million. We're finding it up in the 20 parts per million, 27 parts per million on a regular basis in our waterways. We also have phosphorus issues. We used to have Class 1 trout streams in our county. Today, we have no trout. So if you're a sportsman, it doesn't do you much good to have that nice, beautiful looking river if there's nothing in it. And that comes because of our excess phosphorus. In our trout streams, what used to be nice, clear running, rock bottom, gravel bottom streams, now is choked with algae. The river flow has slowed down so much that the water now is warm and the trout don't want to be there. We also have massive amounts of E. coli. A beach is closed with a reading of 2,000 parts per million. It is immediately closed. Everybody has to leave the beach. In our waterways, consistently, we have over 2,000 parts per million in our waterways. And the problem with that is nobody tests the rivers and streams and tells you to close them. Only the beaches. We have massive well contamination. Like Gordon had said earlier, countywide we have over 30% of our wells tested show up that are contaminated with either E. coli and or nitrates. Town of Lincoln, we have shown in 2013 over 50% of the wells tested were contaminated with E. coli or nitrates. Just this last year, Mark Borchardt from the USDA Research Center came and did viral testing on our water. His statement was, the testing results are findings they would expect to see in a third world country. We have salmonella, campylobacter, in our drinking water. And the interesting thing was, when he was testing that, none of those wells showed E. coli. So what you get done for your well test, which is E. coli, that you send into the state lab, doesn't even show you all of the real issues. We also hear, well, dig a deeper well, then you won't have the problem. In Kewaunee County, the town of Lincoln, spending their own money, taxpayer dollars, along with our soil and water office, Davina Benes, and Kevin Mazerik from UW Stevens Point did a year-long testing of 10 wells. They tested them every month for a year. What they found was, no matter what the depth of your well is, it doesn't determine that doesn't make sure that you have clean water. Actually, the most surprising thing was the shallowest wells had the cleanest water. And they had selected those 10 wells based on ongoing contamination. That's how they selected the depth of your well is. There are fluctuations throughout the year that they will have contaminants in those waters. And just to let you know, we have people in our county that have wells that are over 400 feet deep. They drilled these wells because of the nitrates. They now are getting nitrates at 400 feet down. You can't drill your way away from dirty water. This is something that'll really hit home with you. This is Crescent Beach in Algoma. This is our beach. This is Lake Michigan. That's Cladophora. That's the algae. All that excess phosphorus, all those excess nutrients coming out of our rivers fuels algae growth. I'm sure that you guys go to the beach in the summer and there's people all over on them enjoying the summer, enjoying the lake shore. Do you see any people? The other thing that happens with this algae growth is it stinks. We used to have people that would spend the summer on this beach. They would come from Green Bay to come to the lakeshore because it was nice and cool. Now they get to the lakeshore, they open the door, it smells so bad, they leave. They'll go to Door County, where there are no CAFOs, or there is one CAFO. They'll go to northern Door County where it's clean, but they don't stay in our community. Most people don't really understand what a CAFO really looks like. This is what a CAFO looks like. This is dairy CAFO. Does anybody see any cows? This is another showing another CAFO. In our county, we have 20,000 people. We have 76,000 cows. We have massive amounts of untreated waste. These pits here, they can be 50 million gallons. We actually have in Lincoln Township that already has all this contamination. There's a proposed expansion that will have a manure pit with 76 million gallons of manure. The real interesting thing about this is it's only 2 feet to groundwater. And the one thing that none of you get to really hear, the state standards for engineering allows to have 500 gallons per acre per day of leakage. So when this pit is filled, those 500 gallons will only have to move 2 feet to be in somebody's drinking water. And that's not just in Kewaunee County. The fact is, Kewaunee County has a lot of clay. Our soil is very clay. I went by where this proposed hog CAFO is going to be. Seems to me the water table there is very shallow. I see lots of streams coming out of there. I see a lot of water coming out of there. That tells me your water table there is very shallow to the ground. You have the same issue. And just to let you know, the DNR was going to permit that 76 million gallons to be dug directly into the ground. It would have been into the groundwater. The only reason it was stopped was because the citizens that lived around there, that were going to be directly affected by that, called up the DNR and said, the water table there is feet below the surface. They were going to dig it 20 feet down into that soil. It literally would have been into their drinking water, and the DNR was going to allow it. We have karst soils. Karst is fractured bedrock. You see the bigger picture? That's a sinkhole. That's actually where manure goes into our groundwater. This could actually be spread around. The one thing with our groundwater is, within a karst situation is, groundwater is not a normal flow flush system. In most areas, when you get rainfall, it goes into the ground, it flushes out any contaminants. In our area, those same contaminants, that rain goes in there because it's rock. In some places it can flush out very quickly. In other areas, because our aquifer flows through rock, it can get stuck. And then it may not ever clean itself out. And that's one of the issues that we have in Kewaunee County is, we've already got contaminated water. Is that what you want for your community? In our community, all they need to have is 24 inches to bedrock and they can apply manure. The average farm in our area, the CAFOs, can apply, the average would be 16,000 gallons per acre. They can actually get all the way up to 32,000 gallons per acre. And that's acceptable. This is something else that's going to be very important for your community. Do the same issues that we have. Clay soils don't really allow things to percolate down through them very fast. Every spring, you'll end up with the spring flush. Most applications of manure take place in the fall of the year. They want to empty those pits before winter. Unfortunately, most of that has no crop growing on it. So that manure is going to sit there, and it's going to go in one of two different directions, or both. Either it's going to go straight down into the groundwater, or it's going to sit there and wait until the spring flush comes along and washes it into the rivers and streams, which eventually ends up in your lake. This is something else that is going to apply to your situation just like ours. Spray irrigation of manure, and thank God you guys banned it. But Ashland County, watch out. Spray irrigation of manure is what's being proposed here in the state of Wisconsin. I am actually on the state's spray irrigation manure work group. What we know about spray irrigation is there's 160 known pathogens in manure, and this is dairy manure. Most, I hate to say it, but I think actually there's more in hog manure. And there's also 300 volatile organic compounds. One of the biggest things is when you use a spray irrigation system, whether it be a traveling gun like you're seeing here, which is actually a popular thing with the hog industry, or the center pivots, is that you're aerosolizing that manure into small particulate matter that can be easily inhaled or ingested. There's 3 ways for this to be transmitted. Either through the air, it can go through the air and you can breathe it. It can end up in your water. Looking at that site, if it was ever to be used out there, it's going to be in the water. Or in fomites. And fomites is the dried particulates. And they can blow miles. There's research in the Yakima Valley that shows that these fomites can go for miles. The one thing that we have to worry about is, currently there are no setbacks from property lines for spray irrigation. I have 5 kids. Most of them are grown now, but I know that my kids love to go out and play in the yard. They don't know that they're supposed to stay back from that property line because the guy next to them might be spraying over there. They like to play outside. Young children love to put their hands on things and put things in their mouth. It can be a real issue. And the one thing with children is they're environmental sponges. They have very frequent rapid breathing. They tend to mouth breathe, which means that they're bringing things into their mouth more. And because they're so small, they also don't detox as readily. What they take in stays there. And because of that, anything that's there is going to have a greater effect on our children than it does on us as adults. We also have issues with, because of those fomites, those dry particulates, you end up with what doctors call the A diseases. ADD, ADHD, asthma, allergies, and autism. The big thing is nobody wants to tie these things to what's going on in the environment. In my county, we also have another issue that's come to light in the last few years just because we talk to our citizens. MRSA, antibiotic-resistant infections. Just the other day, I was told of a young lady that worked for one of our large farms. She had a scratch on her nose. She got some manure on her hands and she scratched her nose. 3 days later, she was in intensive care. Her face had swollen so bad that they had to put in a breathing tube, had to give a tracheotomy so that she could breathe. They also had to drill holes in the top of her mouth to allow the infection to come out. This isn't an isolated story. We also have a young boy. He had a cut on his knee, was playing in Rio Creek, one of our creeks in our area. He ended up with an infection in his knee. They ended up having to drill holes in his kneecap to allow the infection out, and had to remove part of his kneecap. 4 children got an infection in his foot. He's had 3 amputations now, and they can't stop it. They removed his foot, and they couldn't stop it. They had to remove it below his knee. And now they had to remove it above his knee. And the infection is still not gone. We have major issues. And this could be your community. And the interesting thing with MRSA is, it is not tracked by your county health department, and it is not tracked by the state of Wisconsin. So nobody really knows what's going on. Kewaunee Cares, our organization, does monitoring. We respond to citizens' complaints about what's going on, where there are issues. This here is a site, the gentleman here called us and said, you know, I've got all this contamination around my house. So we went out there to do some water sampling. This is coming off of what's known as a manure stacking pile. This is actually manure runoff coming from the spring thaw of snow that was on that manure stacking pile. This surrounded his home. This was just feet away from his well. This farm did not get a notice of non-compliance and did not get a fine. The DNR does not look at this as being a violation. This is something else that you guys should understand too, is this is how they move their manure. That semi holds 9,000 or 5,900 gallons of manure. How many trucks are going to be on your roadways to get rid of 50 million gallons? They all like to say that they're going to use pipelines. Well, the one thing is, pipelines don't get across somebody else's private property. They like to say that these are things that they can do. They can't. A farm is not a utility. They do not get to use the road right away without your permission. So remember that. If anybody has anything like this happens, you don't have to give them permission to cross your property. This is how they transfer it. It comes into trucks like this, they dump it out, and this can run for 24 hours a day. This is ponding. This is something that you guys are going to have if you end up with a CAFO in your area. Clay soils does not absorb manure very readily. This causes ponding. That's actually manure sitting in the furrows there. All it's waiting for is the next rain, and it's going to be washed into your rivers and waterways. That same road traffic, this is occurring in northeast Wisconsin on a regular basis now. It is being reported in our newspapers. There's several every year is taking place that these trucks are rolling over. The problem with one of the issues with this is any farm employee that drives one of these semis does not need to have a CDL, commercial driver's license. They are not actually licensed as a truck driver. They don't even have to be able to pass the test, and they can drive these trucks. That's what's coming to your community. Our organization has put up billboards just so that we can actually get some state and local authorities to actually pay attention to us. You guys did great. Getting your people to be interested in what's going on. Unfortunately, politically in our area, nobody wanted to listen to us. The state still doesn't want to listen to us. The state has yet to, at the highest levels, to actually admit that we have a problem with our water. We also put out brochures to educate our public, and we have some in the back of the room there. Take these. That's what happens in our county can happen in your county. I do want to say that, you know, you keep hearing from the operators that they're going to have nutrient management plans in place. A nutrient management plan, just to let everybody know, does not work. 85% of the farmland in Kewaunee County is covered by nutrient management plans. We have the worst water in the state of Wisconsin. If nutrient management plans worked, with 85% of our farmland being covered by nutrient management plans, we would have the cleanest water in the state of Wisconsin. Nutrient management plans were designed to maximize the profit and yield for the farmer. They are not used to protect your groundwater or your surface waters. The one thing everybody needs to remember is clean water and air are not negotiable. They are our rights. Stand up for your rights. Your clean water is what keeps your community alive. It keeps your economy alive. You need to keep it clean for future generations. And Gordon was talking about the Tremel baby that was poisoned 10 years ago in 2014. Just to let you know, just a couple months ago, we had a similar incident happen in Door County, which is just north from us. Another manure incident in our groundwater. A 3-month-old baby ended up in the hospital. Nobody cares. The state of Wisconsin doesn't care. The departments of health don't care. You have to. You have to be the people that will stand up for your children and grandchildren. We must stand up and say, we need to be protected. I've looked at Judy Tremel in the eye. She still isn't over what happened to her child. Our state and county did not support her. Even today, our county, most of the farmers in our county, the CAFO owners, say Judy Tremel poisoned her own well. It's all about profit for them. You need to protect yourself. Thank you.